We got our hands full this week, and we got to be hitting on all three cylinders against Philadelphia. Because if we're not, it won't be enough. So it's going to be a big challenge, but we're excited. We're excited. We'll be looking forward to this when we hit the ground on Wednesday.
Ted, I definitely want to get your sense. I was on a call earlier today with Dave Burkett, and I asked him the question, which call was worse? Was it the crazy, picking up a flag against Brandon Pettigrew?
We actually made Jared sprint, so I would do sprint training with him once a week. I would actually do it with him. I'd run with him. So we topped off, and we would hit at least 90% of his max velocity once a week. My reason for this, from a training perspective and from really pre-acclimation for the tissue, more so from a hamstring, hip flexor, quadricep, when you want to avoid some of those soft tissue injuries for a quarterback who's not hypermobile, they don't run a lot.
And welcome to the Detroit Lions News Show, your number one source for Lions news. And we have a whole host of expert podcasters here today. We have Mark Oram with Orams Forum. Make sure you subscribe. Johnny Gas Sports, the up and cover. Man, he's killing it. And also we have Mark Schmidt, NFLPA, Vice President of the Buffalo chapter. And of course, we have John Macaroon with Sports Illustrated, Lone Wolves podcast. You were in the locker room today, John. Do you feel something a little bit different here? Do you see a sense of urgency? You saw the play calling? Like, are these guys ready? Are they ready to do it? This is a live interactive show, so make sure you leave your comments, and I'll pull them up. I'm going to jump in the backstage. And you guys leave your comments, and I'm thinking I'm not going to that Dallas game. Whoever shares it the most, I'm going to give up that Dallas game for you guys. Did you hear me? With the one guy, we'll bring that up again. All right, take it away, John.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's different. You know, it's different. A Wednesday after a bad loss to the Vikings, there were no players to talk to. Couldn't see anybody. Where was everybody? There's nobody that wanted to talk to me. When there's a Wednesday and everybody's happy, you blow out a team 44-22, you walk in the locker room, everybody's smiling, watching television, having a good old time. So it's a little bit different vibe. And it is so true. You guys know, I think collectively, it's so true. Winning cures all. And when you curb stomp a bad team that came into the game with the 28th ranked defense, it just felt really good. You went in there and you cleaned up a lot of the mess that you had against the Vikings, and you got your running backs going. You collectively as an offense were able to get your people involved. So it was so great to talk to the players and a lot of returning players. Ahmed Hassanin is now back on the practice squad. Marcus Davenport came out to practice now. His 21-day window is open, and same for DJ Reed. So in a couple weeks, you expect to get back a lot of your defensive horses. So it's a good time. You're sitting at 6-3, and you're starting to take into account that you now kind of know your strengths of the team. You know areas that you got to keep working on. But most importantly, I'm curious, guys, from last week, when you notice that Dan Campbell has now called plays, I think a lot of people felt like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. When you realize it's his offense, he's the guy that understands exactly what these players are about. So, obviously we're not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I don't think that John Morton was equipped to do the entire role of an offensive coordinator. He's more of a behind the scenes game planning kind of guy, tendencies, watches film. That's his love and passion. Calling plays is not that easy. It's difficult. You got to get into a rhythm. You got to know exactly where breakdowns you expect to be. You got to figure out how to break down an opposing defense, even if they're not as good as previous opponents. The Commanders still get paid. So it was great all the way around. I'm really happy that Dan Campbell took the reins because it's a strength. I feel like he's not talked about enough as an offensive genius. So I'm curious, what was your guys' reaction? I was elated because you come back after a bad loss and you start to showcase what everybody knows, that if this offense clicks, if that offensive line plays well, you get the pieces involved, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, this offense can curb stop anybody. Mark, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. The head coach can do what he wants to do. And like you said it before, John, not everybody who's a coordinator, you have to, I've been in that situation. I've been in it as a coach, and you have to have a feel for the game as it goes. Anybody can have a scripted 10 plays, as often a lot of the teams do have in the NFL. They have a script based upon their scouting report of their first 10 plays. But after that, in most circumstances in the league versus college, a little bit different, you have to have a feel for the game. You have to have, the people spotting upstairs and telling you what's going on in the defensive backfield. And it's just having a feel for what may be working or who may be working on that particular day. So it's all kind of it's a real gut feeling calling plays in the NFL. I love watching Josh McDaniel from the Patriots because obviously he did it with Brady. He's doing it again now with Vrabel in New England. And good play callers are just good play callers. John Gruden was a great play caller. But again, one of the, some of these guys, they have that position, but you got to have a feel for that. And I'm glad the Lions made that change. It was necessary based upon the last couple of games before. And I'm sure nobody's taking offense to it. It's about putting the best product on the field. And John Morton just wasn't doing that. Now, like you said, John, and very intelligently, he's great behind the scenes. He's a great X's and O's guy from all that we've heard, but maybe he's not a good in-game coach and adjusting on the fly after those first 10 scripted plays are done. And that is a feel, and that is what's in your gut. And I'm glad they made the change. I applaud it. And it obviously worked because in that particular game, there was really no doubt offensively of what Detroit was determined to do and what they eventually did do.
No doubt about it. Gaz, what do you think?
Yeah, you hit on it all right there, Mark. I mean, I think the thing that lacked from the offense, let's say in the previous week from the Vikings, was like a tempo and the type of sequencing that leads to longer drives, more effective drives. And I think there's no better coach in the NFL that has the pulse of his roster more than Dan Campbell. So I think his ability to be able to use certain pieces in the right moments and to be able to have that rapport with Jared Goff and the ability to get plays in, with Jared having the ability to audible and have that freedom to play. And I think you saw that right away in the matchup against Washington. Now, it does help that Washington has a bottom 10 defense, and it really looked like they just weren't really there and playing at the same pace as the Lions. So that certainly helped the cause. But I just think it was really nice to see the communication, the aggression, not being afraid to go back to certain plays or certain types of plays that worked well. And that's and Mark, I think you hit on the head. I mean, the bread and butter of this offense is that rushing attack. And so to see Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery sort of develop that rhythm and to be able to use in sequence together was really, really nice. So I think, this upcoming matchup with the Eagles will tell us a lot about what this offense really will be moving forward. I think 1 week against Washington doesn't necessarily say that we've solved all the offensive problems, but I think what it does show is that Dan Campbell has a great pulse of his roster and can move this thing forward.
Yeah, I thought this move, this is like a little bit of deja vu because we saw this in 2021 when Dan Campbell did this with Anthony Lynn. It was a little bit of a different situation. He kind of put Lynn up there. He did take his play calling duties away from him just as well as Morton, but it was more of a kind of mentoring Ben Johnson at the time. This one was kind of like an all-out kind of taking your play call duties away from you, and be the eye in the sky. Look, you get to see the schemes, you get to make plays for and give that input to Dan Campbell, as long as there's other coaches out there helping too. So this is something that's not new for Dan Campbell. He did it kind of in 2021 after week 9, week 10. This is kind of similar right there. He gave an evaluation to Morton, 9 weeks, whatever it was, and he just had to pull the rug from under him. I don't think it's a bad thing. Morton seems to be on board, but some of the things you kind of seen this building up, especially like along the couple of weeks when like they would ask Morton the questions like you got to get guys involved, and he'd be like, "There's just so many mouths to feed. I just don't know who to go to sometimes, this and that." So you can kind of see this building up, and then Dan Campbell obviously made a decision, and I think it was a very good decision. You saw the flow, you saw the chemistry, like I said, going back to a play that did not work before, doing it in different formations. Like we saw JMO run like the same route a couple times, but in different motions. Like he'd be running a motion, he'd be going in the slot, he'd be going outside, and he was running kind of like the same play. We didn't see that with Morton, and I'm not trying to throw Morton on the bus because I do think he's a good coach, but the guy's been an NFL coach for over 20 years, but he's only been an OC like once with the Jets. Didn't work out well there. Now here with Detroit, it didn't seem to work out, but he is a good coach. It's just maybe do some other things for the organization.
Yeah, I think, Mark, you make a great point in what they were doing with Jamo as far as the motions. You're right. And we weren't seeing that in the weeks that Morton was doing that. It was real confusing for the defense watching that game. Seemed like every time the Lions came to the line of scrimmage, you didn't know what they were going to run. And that's a great thing. That's what you want. You're trying. I can't figure out if they're going to run it. You don't know. And they're a very unpredictable team anyway, because Dan Campbell keeps defenses off balance anyways. Okay, that's just the nature of the way he runs his football team. And now with he calling the plays on offense, I think it just made a difference. And it's so funny that you said that, Mark, because that's exactly what I was thinking of. And you said it. I'm like, what they're doing with Jamo with the motions. Excellent, and it was just very, very difficult to figure out what they were going to do. They disguised what they were going to do very well. And one of the things that I was reading, I think it was on Mark's Facebook, somebody was saying on there that when Jared Goff has a running game, he will pick defenses apart. Okay, I mean he's just that good. And I love it when people say, "Oh, well, is he good enough to get us to the Super Bowl?" Well, he got the Rams to the damn Super Bowl when he was 24. So yeah, that's a big fat yes. But they cannot when that running game is going. Goff is real difficult to stop. He just picks you apart slowly, boom, methodically, and not so many dramatic plays, but just very, very consistently. And you picked up on the exact same thing that I picked up on since Campbell's been calling the plays, and that's the motions for sure.
No doubt. And you got to look at it like this. The opportunity now for Campbell to kind of kick the rust off against a team that, look, the Commanders were dealing with a lot of injuries. They don't have their starting quarterback. So it was a perfect time for Dan Campbell to get the feel back going into a big game now next week against the Eagles. But again, you said it, Mark, which is Jared Goff needs a run game, and he also needs a dominant offensive line. And what was great to see was after a bad game against the Vikings, quite frankly, in which the Vikings won on both sides of the trenches. This game was a little bit different where you came back and you were able to block effectively, so much cleaner. 3 penalties for like a yard. So it was amazing to be able to play a clean brand of football, to go out against a team that was really struggling and to take apart their weaknesses. And for Dan Campbell, now he gets back into the flow of things. And it's always been a collaborative approach with the offensive staff. It's not just Dan Campbell unilaterally saying, I'm going to do this. He likes the input. He named basically everybody on the offensive staff was throwing in ideas. So that's a great sign for this coaching staff. There's a lot of good offensive minds, former NFL players. They understand the game. They understand what these players are about. And for John Morton, I think he can get back to what he really does well, which is when he presents information, he can present detailed matchup analysis, where the weaknesses are, where the Lions can take advantage and do his thing. So I'm not even of the opinion that he's going to leave the organization. I think he may stay in just a non-play calling role because of the fact that really in the end, Dan Campbell should assume this role. And I asked Dan Campbell this week, I said, a lot of the top offenses, the shift has happened. The head coaches are taking the reins. The top offenses in this league, the coaches are calling the plays. And I think it should be that way. I mean, if you're an offensive mind, who better than to take responsibility, take ownership? Nobody knows Dan Campbell's offense better than Dan Campbell. And really, too, you also have to recognize, to just put it in context, better defenses that you go up against will be able to kind of understand your matchups, and you have to kind of have in-game adjustments. That's where I think the biggest weakness was for Morton. When the Vikings were blitzing over and over and over again, Graham Glasgow said, it's like, come on, we really didn't have a lot of the real answers to try and combat that. That should have been in-game. Hey, we got to kind of handle that. We got to kind of scheme up and figure out how not to have Jameer Gibbs be blocking a linebacker with 5-yard head start. We got to kind of scheme this a little different. So I do think that will happen with Dan Campbell. So all is right. You're now facing a Eagles team that's coming off of a Monday Night Football win. Not the best performance offensively. There's a little bit of chaos with A.J. Brown and the passing game, some in-game decisions of Nick Sirianni. But you're going up against, and Scotty Montgomery told the media today, you're going up against one of the top units defensively in the league. And they got a young team, they got a hungry team, and they got a team that, when you look at it, there's opportunities that the Lions, I think, have advantages. So I'm curious what you guys think of this Eagles matchup. I do think that maybe people think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than how I'm currently viewing it. I think this game might be a race to 20. I think both teams are going to want to run the ball. That means more efficiency. The clock will keep moving. I think this game is going to be kind of similar to the Packers game that we just saw on Monday Night Football, but maybe with just a couple more explosive plays there taking place on Sunday Night Football. I'm curious, Mark, what do you think of how this game shakes out? It's an NFC showdown, heavyweight matchup, potential NFC championship preview.
Yeah, I think it's definitely could be a preview of the NFC Championship. There's more parity this year. There's no dominant NFC team, kind of the way the Eagles were last year. Are they as good as last year? I don't know. Maybe not. They're certainly in the conversation. But I'm on the agreement with you that I think 21 or 24 points wins this game. Again, it's getting later in the season. The weather, obviously, it becomes a factor as you play on the road, not in Detroit. Of course, it's the same with the Dome, but weather obviously becomes a factor in this with points. And I think it's a good matchup for Detroit. They're going to have to play their best football. Like Dan Campbell said, and he was very candid about it. He said, it's going to take our best effort. Anything less than our best effort is not going to do this, which is really, obviously the case. And everybody knows that going to play Philadelphia there. And it's definitely going to be a big challenge. But whoever wins this game is going to be propelled as far as, the rest of their season is concerned. I like this. I like this game. I like Detroit in this game. I just don't think that Philadelphia is quite the team that they were last year. I think they're very, very good, but I think Detroit, because they're running the ball so well with Gibbs and Montgomery, especially Gibbs, they're using Sam Laporta, quite a lot now, kind of the way that they saw him when they drafted him, and he's finally filling that role. I shouldn't say finally. He's been a good player since he's been here, but he's really starting to be a go-to guy. St. Brown obviously is, and even in Williams is starting to really come around. So, and Raymond, their offensive line is playing well. This team offensively, but I agree with you. Even though I'm talking about all these good things on offense, I still think 21 or 24 points wins this game. I think that it comes down to the defenses and Detroit really being able to play really, really well and aggressively on defense. I think they're going to score their points because they're going to run the ball. And they're going to run the ball well, especially if the weather is not good. But I think one of the things that you got to really look at collectively is the defenses, and it's not just Detroit's defense; it's Philly's defense. Philadelphia is going to have a hell of a time. I don't care if you play the game in Philadelphia or out in the damn parking lot. Okay, you can't stop the run. Then Goff gets into his mode, and just kind of like some of these away teams have won over the weekend. With Tampa and New England, obviously with Green Bay the other night. On the road late in the season, the crowd's a factor. I understand that, but the weather's also a factor, and I think these games really even out down the road as we get into November and December. I think early season home field advantage means a lot. Late season, not so much. The game is tightened up, guys. It's tightened up defensively. It tightens up offensively. A lot of times in the playoffs, And, and home field advantage, as important as it is, it doesn't mean that I don't think it's going to mean a damn thing this week. I think Detroit's going to win this football game, and you heard it here first.
Yeah, I think, Mark, hopefully the weather will be okay. I'm hearing like almost below 60, a little bit of rain. And we know the Lions team, Dan Campbell, they'll play in any conditions. For them, it's really about Dan Campbell's whole aura, and he'll bring them anywhere and win anywhere. But here's my keys to this game. Ultimately, it's all about protecting Jared Goff. I mean, the defensive front for the Eagles won them a Super Bowl last year. They can rush with 4. And with the Lions offensive line, Christian Mahogany not being there anymore, you got Coyote Awasika, who I thought played well last week. And I think the line gelled pretty well. They averaged 6.9 yards per play. So that tells you they're establishing the line of scrimmage, but can they do that against the Philadelphia Eagles front? So to me, that's the biggest question. Use tempo, continue to use that tempo, exhaust their defense as much as possible. And I think the way you can get to this defense is by attacking their linebackers. So use Gibbs over the middle, Sam Laporta, those kinds of routes. We saw J-Mo work the middle a lot here against Washington. So those kind of things I think will win the day against Philly. And then defensively, the Lions have proven they can stop the run. Now, Saquon Barkley is a whole different animal. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. And, again, that offense has been up and down, but I think the Lions have proven that they can stop the run. So if they can contain Hurts, I think they can hold down Barkley enough to where I'm kind of with you, Johnny Mac. I think this is still a lower scoring game. I think a race to 21 sounds good to me. But the biggest key is that when the Lions get in scoring position, they got to put it in the end zone. It can't be field goals. We know Dan Campbell's mentality. That won't be where he's at. But even more important, in Philly on the road, you can't settle for 3. If you can put it in the end zone, they got to do that. So to me, that's what wins them this football game. What do you think, Marco?
Yeah, man. I'm really looking forward to this football game. I know Dan Campbell already told his boys today, I guess, supposedly he was like, we're waiting for these guys. This is the type of game that we need to go in there and, we need to establish our dominance. So I think this is a game where I think we're kind of all on board here. We have to run the football down their throats. They don't play the run as well. They're about 19th in the league, I think, in run defense. So I think it's going to be a heavy Gibbs, heavy Montgomery, and like we're all saying, you have to block for Goff. I do worry a little bit about the interior still. We got some guys banged up. Glasgow's a little banged up right now. Iwasika's in there. Ratlich is in there. They've given up a lot of pressures this year. And, we're going up against 2 really big defensive tackles, nose tackles, in Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, who for big men can get to the quarterback. Jordan Davis has got like 3 or 4 sacks on the year. He's a guy you really have to team up on, maybe double up. Jalen Carter, like another guy too, super athletic for a big fella. If we can kind of lock those guys down, I think we can really establish a nice run game. And like Yaz said, work the middle, work those linebackers. They're a little bit smaller. They got guys like Campbell, who's like the rookie. I think he's a rookie. The rookie Campbell is a really good linebacker, but you can attack him. This should be my one matchup. I really do like to see our offense versus their defense. Quinyon Mitchell probably on Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's my guess who's going to be on him. I know St. Brown likes to go from the slot a lot, but he does go from the outside. So I expect Mitchell to be on him majority of this football game. So that's a big matchup that I'm looking forward to. And then defensively for us, like I think we're all in agreement too. Stop Barkley. I think you have to be able to stop Barkley. We've been really good against the run this year as a defense as a whole. We've played well. Obviously, we've actually played well against mobile quarterbacks this year. I know there's a lot of people out there. I keep seeing on social media, and you guys know me. I love to argue with people on social media. It's kind of a bad habit of mine. But there's a lot of Lions fans out there saying that we don't do well against mobile quarterbacks this year. We've done really well. Like we've done well against Lamar Jackson. Baker can run a little bit. Jordan Love, even though we lost that football game, they didn't get a lot of running against us. Not a lot of. So I'm kind of Kelvin Shepard is maybe going to do a spy like he kind of did with Lamar. I'm not too sure because I fear, me personally, I don't know, obviously the guys in the locker room don't feel the same. I think Jalen Hurts is more dangerous with his legs than he is his arm. I'm not dissing the guy. He's a Super Bowl champion, but I think he's extremely dangerous with his legs. And I think if he gets to the outside, he gets a flow of running, it's going to make it easier for him to start passing the ball. And he does have a really nice deep ball, so that you got to worry about guys like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. A.J. Brown is already out there, again, whining. You guys know how A.J. Brown is. Those wide receivers, you wide receivers, Mark. He's out there. I guess he was on a Madden. He was playing some Madden. He's complaining about not getting enough looks, complaining about not getting the ball, not enough touches. So every time the Philadelphia Eagles kind of do something like, or every time A.J. Brown does this, they seem to feed him a little bit more the following week. Maybe
Okay, can I? You know what? I know. I just got to stop you right there because you're talking wide receivers, Mark. I don't mind you interjecting. And this is what I would do. And I hope you guys. This is how I would approach that. I know what affects that team emotionally, and that's when A.J. Brown's not getting the football. I would take A.J. Brown out of this game. I would double cover him. I would let Goddard beat us. I would let Saquon Barkley beat us. I would take A.J. out of the game. And for some reason, it's just you're playing on their negative, and that's what you have to do. You got to take something that really bothers that team, and one of the things that bothers that very good team is not getting A.J. Brown the ball and not getting him involved. So what do I do in my game plan? I take him out right away. I bump him 5 yards off the ball, and then I pick him up at 12. I keep almost let somebody else beat us, and you play on that negative that has kind of sometimes become a negative with that football team, and that's the way I would play it. That's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think of that, but that's just what I would do.
Sure. Like my concern a little bit with A.J. Brown this week too is that I don't think Arnold's playing, right? He's concussed.
No.
Is he already late? Is he already out?
So, no,
he's out.
Not yet.
He's in the protocol, so
okay.
It's day by day. But I don't know. Yeah, it may be a situation in which the Lions tend to be cautious, especially with a brain injury. So he didn't practice Wednesday. We'll be out there again tomorrow. I would not expect him to practice. Maybe we'll get a better understanding on Friday, but they tend to be cautious, especially with, him saying that he didn't feel that great when he got hit there against, in that victory, against the Commanders. So we'll see how it progresses, but you always want to be cautious, especially with brain injuries. But you guys are right, especially, now that Lane Johnson had that injury, the Eagles offensive line, everyone's asking what's going on with Saquon Barkley. He had gaudy numbers last year. Unfortunately, you can't just replace a Mekhi Becton and just be like, hey, we're just going to replace him and everything's going to be magic. It's one of those deals where the whole world knows that Saquon can take it to the house on any given play. So he's going to get some advanced looks from the defenses, more stack boxes, and he hasn't had the season that he had last year, but he's always going to be a dangerous weapon. But luckily, it's wild. And if you guys have been reading and paying attention, Tyleik Williams has had his role reduced, the first-round pick, because Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader are so stout against the run, and they have a free agent in Roy Lopez who's come in with his 12 to 15 snaps a game. He's taken advantage, and he can get up to the defensive line and do some things. He can get into the backfield there and limit quarterbacks. So it's going to be a great opportunity now. I can't wait to see the battle of the trenches. But speaking of wide receivers, I think everybody's paying attention in Detroit to Jameson Williams. And it's a unique talent that the Lions have in number one. The guy can be utilized in a myriad of ways. And I felt like what Dan Campbell did was get him involved in crossers, get him involved in routes that don't have to be 18 yards down the field. Like, you can get him involved in a myriad of ways where if there's opportunities to get him in some space on any given play, he can get 10 yards after the catch and maybe even break one. Did you guys like how Dan Campbell used Jameson Williams? And against better teams, I understand that, teams are also going to, give him extra attention, which will open things up. But for Jameson Williams, I feel like he's that type of player, not to say force him the ball, but get him involved in these creative ways where he can get it in space, whether it be screens or crossers or comeback routes, dig routes in the seam, whatever it takes, a certain amount of times, whether it be 6 to 8 to 10 times a game, you got to put the ball in his hands. There's magic to be had with that player.
There's exactly, and you hit the nail right on the head, John. There is magic to be had. The thing is about him, and again, I've been in that situation at the NFL level. He is not, and don't take this as a name. He's not a go-to guy. He is not a Laporta. And let me finish. When I say he's not a go-to guy, he's not really a 3rd and 6 guy. He's not always a 3rd and 7 guy. He's more of a home run hitter. Laporta and St. Brown and Raymond do those other things. And of course, our 2 running backs out of the backfield. So when I say that, you got to take it with a grain of salt. He's a big hitter. He makes big plays at big times. But he's not, and he never will be. And I've said it on this show, he's never going to be a 90 to 95 reception a year guy. He will be a 40 to 50 reception guy, and be 900 yards or whatever it is, and 6 touchdowns. That's a great year for him. But he is not the go-to guy. Well, what do I mean by that? Quarterbacks, and again, I was involved in that situation years ago. Quarterbacks know who they want to go to, and 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8. And they know what they want to do. But you hit the nail on the head just right, John, when you say you got to be creative to get Williams into the program, because he is not a go-to guy. He is not our 3rd and 6 guy. He is our home run hitter, and he has the ability to do that. And there's only so many guys who can even do that athletically in this league. So you hit it is exactly what I'm thinking. If you get Jameson Williams involved in the other, you have to work to do it almost. Okay. And everybody will look at that as a negative. It's not a negative. It's a positive. I'm complimenting his athletic ability and his ability to be a home run hitter. Okay. But you on the offensive end of this, and now it includes Campbell, and it obviously includes Morton as well. And it also includes Goff, I'm sure, because he's been in this offense a long time. It's about being creative, and you got to be smart how you integrate him into your offense. And that's that's one thing that I've noticed, because he's not going to be your 90 catch guy ever, but he will give you 45 of the 45, 25 of them will be great ones. And that's just the difference in players. And that's how you have to adjust your offense to the personnel you have. And those are the best coaches in the world. Okay, who can adjust you. Okay, this is the talent we have, or this is the talent that we don't have. Okay, and then I adjust my offense to those guys. And that's what I think Campbell is doing. He did it last week, and I think that's what's a very optimistic point moving forward.
That's that, Mark, and I jump off of that because I think that's what makes the Dan Campbell move the best play that they could make. And that's, I think, why John Morton didn't really fit the offensive play caller thing the way we thought it would, because it seemed to me like he was trying to fit the players into his scheme rather than what I think you're saying is taking the players and then figuring out how to scheme around that.
Yes,
so how
exactly.
do you make Jameson Williams the best player possible? You don't work him into your predetermined scheme. You scheme for him. And I think that was the difference in Washington is you didn't just use him as part of your scheme to open up the middle of the field. You let him work this route tree that we kept hearing about in the offseason and the preseason. The route tree is expanding. You're now seeing him, run these ins and digs and crossers and using that speed and getting the ball quicker. And that's how you get 6 receptions for 119 yards and a score. So, Mark, I think you hit it right in the head, my man.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, he's just the guy, like Mark says, I do agree, like to a point. He's not going to be your go-to guy. He's the perfect number 2. Sometimes he's even a number 3 behind Sam Laporta. Him and Laporta kind of jumping back and forth there. So there's a lot of weapons there, but he's the type of guy you have to get him involved. You don't want him to go to sleep during the game. You have to get him involved. You got to start just give him some targets, some end arounds, some sweeps, whatever you need to do to get him involved. And a happy JMO is a really good JMO, and it brings the energy up on the sidelines and on the field itself. You just see it. The kid's so energetic. He's so energetic. He's got a smile that goes to the roof. You know what I mean? He's just and when he's involved in the game, it's a whole different game. And like you guys are saying, Campbell just kind of like he integrated everybody into this, and JMO being one of it. So I'm excited for him. It's going to be a big test against Philly. They're going to try to bottle them up. Just somehow get him involved. And he's just so electric. He's probably the fastest kid in the league. I'm just very excited for JMO and this football team going forward.
Yeah, I get a sense that everybody's happy in agreement that the best utilization of the skill players on this team involves Dan Campbell working with the staff and then calling a game. And then when you have this opportunity with all these skill players, it's just great to see them operate. And I think Dan Campbell is going to put them in a lot of positions to succeed. Now, speaking of the Eagles game, it's a tough game, but now moving forward, you still got games remaining against the Packers and the Vikings and the Bears. And it's real interesting to look at this division because most people thought, well, it's going to be the Packers and it's going to be that team with Jordan Love. Well, when you look at the Packers, man, without the Spartan Dog, Jaden Reed, without Kraft, unfortunately, that offense looks really abysmal. And really, in the end, it's great to see. And listen, I don't know if you guys do it, but I certainly do. When the Bears, Vikings, and Packers lose a game, I love hopping on their social media and their YouTube feeds and their sports radio and just hear them whining and complaining. And man, the fan base of the Packers, they are not happy that LaFleur can't figure out special teams. They just realize that whatever decision he makes in critical moments on fourth down tend to be the wrong ones. And it was great to see another meltdown as they've lost a couple games in a row now and have been overtaken by the Bears. I'm a little bit concerned that the Bears got the magic, and it's one of those deals that, and I think Aaron Glenn will, maybe not this year, but I do think soon, when these guys come from a winning organization, once they learn how to win, the Bears have learned how to win. They've learned how to be gritty. They're not the most talented team, but they have talent at certain spots, and they have what you would like, which is the ability to overcome adversity, weather some storms, and kind of play in a way where whatever kind of game you want to see, they're able to adapt. So I'm just curious what you guys are thinking about the division. Most notably, the Packers are not as good as they once were. I don't think they're the same division threat that you got to worry about. I think you got to look to the closer neighbor, which is the Chicago Bears. And that game in Chicago is going to be great. I think that the curb stomp's going to happen on Thanksgiving against the Packers. I think everybody wants to see that. And when you have a drastic shift with the Vikings and a quarterback that's so young, it's just difficult, especially in what people are calling the most toughest division in football. If you don't believe that, it's still one of the toughest. The NFC North is going to be a battle. And I'm just curious what you guys are thinking about the division and the fall off of the Packers.
Well, I think that there is a little bit of a fall off. Losing Kraft, I mean, he's the guy who has really made that offense go. I still believe that Matt LaFleur is an excellent coach. There was somebody that, and this is what's crazy. I know we're part of the media now, but somebody asked that guy, and I obviously I'm a Lions, they asked him about his job. I mean, come on, are you kidding me? You lost your marquee guy on offense, and you're having a hard time moving the football. I mean, shit happens, okay, and injuries are part of it. But that poor guy, and I say poor guy because he has done a really very good job in my mind. I'm not a Packers fan, but I have a lot of respect for them and the product that they put on the field. I think I read a stat the other day. He's won 13 games like 3 times. Since he's been coach. Is that did I hear that right? 13. Yeah. 3 times. I mean, the guys, they're doing everything they can. There is a little bit of a shift in this division, as you say, John. And I was the one who said it on this show. I said, Chicago's to be a 9-8 team this year. Well, they're going to probably be better than that. And who is this Loveland guy? This tight end? Holy shit. That guy's fantastic. I mean, he's so athletic. And I know they had Kmet, obviously, but this Loveland kid, and he scored that winning touchdown against Cincinnati. Chicago is, they're coming back the way that I really didn't predict it, and they're going to have a pretty good season. Minnesota, I will tell you this, because I'm trying to get to the whole division. Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy makes hard throws. I watched him over and over again. He was out of that offense for a few weeks because of injury, and now he's back, and man, they need that guy back. Don't forget about JJ. What is he, 24 years old? That kid's going to be fine. That kid is good. Okay. I watched some of the throws that he made in the last, he's going to be just fine. The whole division's pretty darn good. The only thing that we haven't seen is Green Bay having this fall off, and it's because they lost a marquee offensive player. Defensively, they're playing out of this world. I think they're happy the way things turned out with Dallas and with number 1 over there. But it's a whole long season, and it's a process. And I think LaFleur's a good coach. I think they're still going to be there toward the end. But like you're saying, John, I think there's a shift going on, and it's very slowly that's going on in the NFC North. Detroit is still Detroit. But all of a sudden, where Green Bay was, and this is a test to your point, where Green Bay was, now all of a sudden Chicago is slipping into that number 2 spot. Okay, so that's just what I see. So you nailed nailed it there, and we're seeing that kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, I think for the Bears, for me, it's all about, learning to win, but then also learning how to beat quality teams. So right now they're beating bad teams, and they should. And if you really watch those games, I still think they're in a situation where Caleb Williams is still overusing his athleticism on almost every offensive possession, which is great in small doses. And if it's going to beat the Giants on every so often week, then I'm good with that. But can they beat playoff type teams? So I still think they're 1 year away from being true contenders, but I like what Ben Johnson's building there. Green Bay is frustrating in a sense of their offense just disappears at times. And of course, losing the offensive lineman is a key piece to that. But I just think Jordan Love can't disappear as often as he does, and they just can't lose games by only scoring 7 points. You can't do it, and they're not going to beat any other team in the NFC if that's how they're going to play offensively. They can't continue to stand on their defense, but at the same time, they've beaten the Lions week 1. Hopefully the Lions are going to be a different team when they play them Thanksgiving, so I'm really looking forward to that matchup, and I think that ultimately still determines who wins this division. The Vikings, I'm with you, Mark. I think JJ's showing great signs. I like what I see out of him. I think he's a gritty winner, but he's got a long way to go. And I think because of that, because of those growing pains, they'll still kind of, trail in the NFC North. But I think you have a great division here. It's rounding out very well. But I still see the Lions at the top with the Packers kind of nipping at their heels.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love seeing the Packers downfall a little bit right here. 2 games in a row. But losing Kraft really, really hurts them. They just lost their Pro Bowl center, Jenkins. Jaden Reed still on the IR. I think it's a team. It looks like Matt LaFleur is a really good coach. I don't really know what he was doing the other day, going for it on 4th and 9. He just seemed kind of out of sorts, confused. The team, especially the offense, they do not look good. They're not gelling. There's no unity. There's no chemistry. And the defense is just playing out of their minds. Like they are playing out of their minds, and they're keeping them within the game. They're just keeping them in the game in order to win the game, but the offense just can't do it. So I personally think that they're in a lot of trouble, losing Kraft, now the center, and then Reed. I think they're going to go on a little bit of a free fall here. With the Vikings, JJ McCarthy, Michigan man, he's never lost in the state of Michigan. He did it against us. I thought he had a very nice game against us. The wide receivers seemed to maybe bail him out a couple times, but he did make plays when he really needed to, especially on that end of the drive when he threw that ball to Jalen Naylor. I thought it was really good coverage by Arthur Mollett, but it was just a perfectly thrown ball and an even better catch by Jalen Naylor, who had a nice game. So, and that's a team that has a good defense too. So I think they're a little bit on the rise. They're not as good, because I think their quarterback play is going to be up and down because JJ's so young, but I do like him in the future. Now with the Bears, I think that's a team that's playing with fire. They seem to be every week they come back from behind and they win their football game. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what we did like a couple years ago. What the Lions are doing when we were starting to get really good. So it's a team that's really building. He got Ben Johnson in the locker room saying, this is where we want to be. We had them right where we wanted them. You really didn't, Ben. But, you came back and you did win. So they're finding ways to win. So that's progression in itself right there. But with Caleb, he kind of like you guys say, he'll make a great play, then he'll make a terrible play, and then he'll make a good play, and then back to a terrible play. It just seems to kind of be Caleb's he's very off script. He flies by the seat of his pants, but he's got so much talent. He has so much talent. And they have a lot of injuries on defense too as well, especially in their secondary, and they're giving up a ton of points, but they're finding ways to win. So if their defense comes back, I don't know really about their situation with guys coming back. I think Jalen Johnson, I don't know if he came back against the Giants, but they got guys, I think, slowly coming back. They could be a bigger problem I think they're going to be a bigger problem than Green Bay and Minnesota, for sure, because I think Green Bay is going on a free fall, and Minnesota will kind of be up and down. Mm-hmm. So Chicago's the team that really scares me the most right now. And we're both tied at 6-3. We just have the tiebreaker over them because we put a whooping on them early in the season, and it could be a very different story when we go to Chicago. Hopefully their defense is still a little bit banged up because we don't feel sorry for people that get injured. So that's just the way it is. So Chicago's the team that I'm really looking at.
Great points by all the panelists. Make sure everybody leave your comments. Are you concerned about any other team besides the Bears? Are they the guys? Are they the team that's going to be nipping at the heels for the Lions for the foreseeable future, or is the Packers if they retool? One more thought I want to know from the panelists before we depart, and I have to go. We spent the first part of the show talking about the Lions offense, but we do have to give credit to the defense. They're doing some things quite well. Aiden Hutchinson clearly has showcased that he's a player that has rebounded from the injury last year. He's well on his way with the pressures and quarterback hits. Now, the sack totals are always going to be challenging to, sometimes they come in numbers, but he's always getting the extra attention. But Kelvin Shepard is getting pressure from different spots. Against the Vikings, Brian Branch was able to get some pressure. He's getting pressure from the linebackers. And so you realize that now, too, you're going to get over the next handful of weeks some guys back. Malcolm Rodriguez could be a player that most notably, I believe, is going to debut against the Eagles. You get Ahmed Hassani now on the practice squad developing, and maybe for the tail stretch there can be put in situations. The pass rush is, Dan Campbell was asked about it. He gave a funny answer if you guys want to go and check it out. A reporter asked him a specific stat question, and the question was, well, if you look at the pass rush win rates, the Lions are last in the league. And he's like, what does that mean? And he agrees with the stat if that's what it is, but he wasn't exactly sure how to kind of address that. But he's like, we get the pressure where we need to. Kelvin Shepard will identify what he needs to. But I feel like the defense is taking advantage of the strengths, and you see the depth in the secondary where they're going to have opportunities to utilize guys like Amik Robertson, a Thomas Harper, a Rocky Sin. There's guys coming in making plays, doing some things. So it's something to see. And DJ Reed now started his practice clock. I'm curious, a couple thoughts on the defense. What do you guys think about the defense? Where do you see improvements that need to be made? And then clearly the biggest trigger, first and foremost, I do think that Jack Campbell will be talked about quite a bit from this panel. He's emerging as a linebacker to be respected. But the player that's most polarizing is Terrion Arnold. Had a nice game against the Vikings, started to be in phase and is doing a lot more things that you would like from a cornerback, less penalties. But now the unfortunate situation is he can't stay on the field. I feel like this defense will be better, but there are some areas that I feel could be better. And the area I asked a coach, I don't know if I'm going to ask it to Kelvin Shepard, because I felt, the defensive coach, David Corral, said that, it's about execution and not breaking down. But the biggest weakness, in my opinion, is when teams are entering the red zone, they've given up 20 touchdowns out of 30 times. They've allowed teams to come into the red zone. They got to clean that up a little bit. You can't give up 66% in the red zone touchdowns. You got to be able to make sure that those drives are limited and not give up those 7 points. So I'm curious, what do you guys think of the defense? Is it showing you enough to take strides with some additions to put this team in a position to win? I'm curious, Mark, what do you think of the defense?
Yeah, I mean, the defense has been pretty decent, John. I really think that Kelvin Shepard's done a good job. It's being a defensive coordinator in this league, I mean, you're always going to be, questioned on this because they score more points in the league. Everything in this league now is designed for offense. And that's what kind of, football traditionalists don't like that. I think personally watching not the game the other night, but a 13-10 NFL game can be a great game. It's still entertaining. Maybe not that Green Bay game on Monday night, but, defenses it's about keeping guys on the field. And it's not about sacks. It's about pressures. And I think that's a big part of it. And I think Detroit is doing that. They're getting a lot of pressures on quarterbacks. Certain players are emerging. Jack Campbell is emerging. He's starting to look like a first-round draft pick. Malcolm Rodriguez has got to get on the football field. I think he's a talented kid, but he's just had so many fallbacks that he needs to be out there. Arnold on defense. Branch is fantastic in my mind. I love the guy. Arnold is a little bit of a question mark here and there, but I think collectively, and Aiden Hutchinson being back and playing, pretty darn well coming off of what he came off of. So relatively speaking, he's doing great, and he signed a new contract. So, I mean, when you look at defenses, it's kind of like, okay, they're holding us in it. Very seldom do you have a defense in the NFL that's just lights out. Okay, I think Green Bay's defense is probably playing some lights out right now, and there's probably one or two other defenses in the league that may be. But defenses in the game of the NFL in 2025 is kind of about just keeping you in there, okay? And it's kind of like keeping you close and keeping the book. You're not going to hold teams to 12 points every game or 9 points or 15 points, but, we held them to 22. We held them to 24. That's kind of the way you look at it. And it's not a lot of fun to analyze or look at. And maybe certain guys don't drop, pop off the page at you, but it's about consistency and it's about keeping your team in the football game so you can get your damn offense back out there and get some scores. I mean, and that's what it's all about. So what I'm saying is defense in today's NFL is not very fashionable. Okay. It's necessary. Absolutely. But is it fashionable? Is it sometimes fun to talk about? Not really, and not really. Defenses just keep you around. They keep you hanging around. And I think that's what Detroit has done this year under Kelvin Shepherd. They've kept themselves around and they've kept themselves in games to be in there in the fourth quarter and to win games in the fourth quarter. And that's the way it is. Games are so close and there's such a fine line between winning and losing in the league now, more so than ever. So I would say they're doing a decent job. I wouldn't say great, but I wouldn't say that probably 25 of the 32 teams in the NFL are playing great defense. They're not. They're playing adequately. Okay. And they keep themselves that their offense can come in and steal games in the fourth quarter. And that's how the script runs out over and over and over again. And I don't mean script literally, guys.
Yeah. I like.
Did you get the joke, Johnny?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I like what Kelvin Shepherd's done. I mean, and again, he's still playing behind it as far as the defensive back issues, the health we're having. So I'm very happy with what we've seen. Now, the other thing we got to consider, if we go look back at the Vikings game, the offense put the defense in such terrible positions as far as backing them up. So, I mean, the fact that they were able to hold that to, I think, what was it, 27 points, whatever it was, I thought was great. So I think with all that being said, with the offensive inconsistencies, I think the defense has held up very well. I'm really excited to see what happens when Malcolm Rodriguez comes back, another guy that they can kind of deploy as an extra rusher. I mean, they love the linebacking crew they have. So really, he's just an extra piece now and a weapon to use for Kelvin Shepherd. So I'm excited for that. And as these pieces come back with Kirby Joseph and obviously Terrian recovering from concussion protocol, DJ Reed's now back in the 21-day program. So you're going to get healthy. So I just think there's a lot of positive upside as we get to the second half of the season. Marcus Davenport is now back in the rotation. We know what we can get out of him if he stays healthy. So I think the biggest question is what John Mack said is the red zone defense, and then can they get one extra guy to get some pressure to help Hutch?
Yeah, like I really like this defense, what they've been doing this year. There've been some up and downs. Obviously, like a lot of injuries going on. I really feel for Terrion at times because he's struggled with adversity. He's gotten blasted by fans. He hasn't been that great his first year, up and down, and then he comes back hurt again. He's just the kid. Like I think he's been hurt like 5 or 6 times this year already. Now he's in concussion protocol. He's had a couple good games, like back to back. I kind of feel for the kid. Hopefully he can come back strong. DJ Reed, like you guys say, that 21-day window's open. Maybe see him in a couple weeks. Brian Branch, I love his old school ways. He just needs to stay within his head a little bit. And then Kirby Joseph, we're missing Kirby Joseph right now. When he comes back, I'm not really too sure when he's coming back. I don't think he's practicing. So to get that ball hawking safety, that all-pro safety up there is going to be really big. And then like I said too, you got Davenport in the mix. He's a little bit of a Band-Aid, but when he's healthy, he really can support this team in the run. He's a big defensive end, which they love, and he can get to the quarterback a little bit. And then you got Muhammad kind of playing out of his mind at times, which is really nice because they're always keying in on Hutch, and Hutch is doing his thing. So I think we need to see a little bit more pressure from the inside. Like John was talking about the pass rush win rate. It is not that good apparently, but we are number 2 in the NFL in sacks. So I think we have like 30 or 31. So we're behind.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're behind the Broncos, who has like 95 sacks. They just sack everybody, man. The Broncos. So we're number 2 in the league. So it's like we're getting the job done. We're getting it in spots, and then when you don't have a front 4 that can really get to the quarterback, you have to use your linebackers. And Barnes, Anzalone. Campbell's having, I think Jack Campbell's having an all-pro year. I think he's really stepped into his own in his third year. It was something I was really concerned about. Not concerned like in a bad way, but it was just he had 2 years where, you know, his rookie and his second year where he just kind of got a lot of tackles, high volume tackler. But his third year, he's really stepped up. The sacks, the tackles.
Are you wearing his jersey, Mark?
Oh, I got his jersey. Baby.
Are you wearing his jersey?
I love.
That's what I thought.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely love that pick when they made him. I know a lot of people were like, you don't take a middle linebacker in the first. I love that pick. I thought he was a great player at Iowa, and I really wanted a linebacker, and he was one of the top guys. And you know, it took him 3 years, I think, to really establish. He wears the green dot. So this defense, you know, I think the sky's the limit. You know, guys are coming back, so that's really good. And Campbell said that. He goes, "Where do you see us at the end of November?" He goes, "We're going to be a whole different team." He's like, "We're going to be a whole different team. We got guys coming back healthy, and if we can stay healthy with our current roster, look out." And so I'm excited about this defense. They have a very big test coming up against the Eagles this week.
So John Macaroon, thank God he came on. I sent the link in the chat. If anybody wants to jump on, then we could jump on. And it's always great to have the Mac in the house. Thank you guys we got 9 viewers. Like, you guys want to jump on? We could talk football. I want to talk football. Do you want to talk football? Or do you want
What do
to?
you guys think? Well, I got everybody to ask, though. What do you guys think about the St. Brown situation?
As far as
he's not going to get suspended, otherwise he would have been suspended already.
Either.
Right?
Well, apparently he was the one who threw the first punch. I don't really think it was a punch. It was more of a kind of like a slap in the helmet. Yeah. We see those every week. We kind of see those every week, and then Deron Payne came from China and tried to literally knock him out. So, what do you guys think about that? Do you think?
I think if something would have been, I think what Coach said, I think if something was going to be done, it would be done by now.
Right.
Unless I'm not familiar with the sequence of events that are supposed to happen. If you're going to be reprimanded.
Yeah, I think it would have happened right.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would have happened by now. It's almost Thursday. You know what I mean? They're not going to say, okay, well, he's not playing.
Yeah, because teams got to they have to make plans for him not playing. I mean, you can't just readjust in 48 hours for a guy all of a sudden he's suspended.
That was malicious, though? Like, do you think that was malicious what St. Brown did, kind of slapping him?
That's football, right?
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know what
I don't know, Johnny. Johnny, you ever play football? I
played all the way through high school. I've been an intramural after that. So I mean, I'm not professional at all. But look, that happens.
I was a walk-on for the CFL, and Mark Orem was. He was a highly regarded linebacker in this area just across the river from Detroit. And obviously Mark Schmidt was All-American. So
All-American, baby. Lions. That's right.
Yeah.
But guess what? I could beat him on an arm wrestle.
Oh, stop. Now the shit's really flying.
No. Listen. Look. Okay. No. Show your shoulder right now. Can I beat you in an arm wrestle?
Shoulder, yeah, that's why.
Come on. I could beat him. I could beat him in an arm wrestle. Guaranteed.
I just had rotator cuff surgery, you guys. Rotator cuff and bicep tendon. So I had them both done. And the Buffalo Bills doctor, I got to give a kudos out to Les Bassan, the Buffalo Bills head physician. He did the surgery on me. He's done surgery on me before. He's the best of the best. And one of the things that's really neat about, the former player status is, if you live in a city outside of the city where you played, you can still use NFL doctors. And they're supposed to prioritize you. So, which is nice. So I've had Dr. Bassan work on me, and he just did surgery 2 weeks ago. So I'm just fresh into this thing right now. But I know, Mark, you also had your shoulder done too. So
I had mine done too, man. I was out for a while, man. A lot of rehab, a lot of physio. Yeah. A lot of patience. Yeah. A lot of patience, man.
A lot of patience. Well, I got all the other stuff. The patience I don't have. I got all the other stuff.
Me too, brother. Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah, losing the
mobility. Well, listen, guys,
I know. I'm
out here, guys.
No. You're not out yet. Listen,
I'm not out. Okay.
I want you to meet Johnny. Johnny is really good. Okay,
Johnny.
I appreciate one question. You finish it off right here, and we'll answer it. Now I get to be on the show. Johnny, let's talk about it.
Well, because we're speaking with Mark, I got to ask this question. I mean, you played wide receiver. You were in the Lions organization for a minute. So let's circle back to a rookie right now with the organization, Isaac TeSlaa. Are you familiar with Isaac? I assume you are,
yes.
Mark.
Yes,
So-
third round pick. Yes.
So they spent a lot of draft capital to get him, move up to get him in that third round. And I'm okay with it. I was okay with it at the time because I like the idea of them continuing to stack weapons, but they're really not using him as much as I thought they would based on the type of plays he was making in the preseason. We kept hearing he's got a lot of grit when it comes to blocking downfield. He's a willing, to go get it. He'll play on special teams. He'll be a gunner. Mark, in your experience, is he doing enough to earn more opportunities on the field, or what does it take for an NFL wide receiver to earn more opportunities for receptions?
Well, I think what you have to do is during the week, you have to start to become somebody that the quarterbacks want to go to. That's really what it comes down to. There are very few occasions, and I'll give you one example right now, is Ladd McConkey. Okay, caught 85 passes last year. That is such an anomaly. I was a rookie in that league as a wide receiver. That is such an anomaly because you have to adjust. I don't care if you played in Georgia's, pro style offense or Stanford's pro style offense. Okay, you have so much adjusting to do, especially a young man who plays in the slot like Ladd McConkey does. Now they've started to drift him outside because they can and because he can. Okay, and probably he's a little faster than people believe, but Isaac TeSlaa, there's such a difference. And physically speaking, now you're talking my shop now, okay? And physically speaking, if you lined up Ladd McConkey next to Isaac TeSlaa and you told them to, take their shirts off and walk down the beach, you'd say, oh my gosh, look at TeSlaa, look at that body, look at that. Yeah. Look, I mean, he's chiseled, he's put together. The game so much is played right here. As long as you have the 6'1", 185 pounds to work with, okay, and you got to be a strong kid, and you got to have some speed. There's no question. You don't have to run a 4.4 though, okay. Sure. But you're asking a really good question that's right up my alley, and I'm making an analogy between Isaac TeSlaa, a kid who's just really new to everything. I remember when I came in, I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I said, if I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to make it running 1,000 miles an hour. Okay. And that's what I was able to do. And I made mistakes 1,000 miles an hour, but I still did it 1,000 miles an hour. But it is such an anomaly. It takes a year, guys. Listen to me. I've been through this. It takes a year to get this shit down and to understand the offense and the reads, especially on 3rd down and 6, especially on 3rd down and 8. To become a go-to guy, as I was talking about earlier in the show, Jamo, who's as good as he is, he's just not that guy. He may not know the offense as well as a guy who plays in the slot, who has to adjust in the middle of his route, guys, in the middle of his route to whether you zig or whether you zag. And if you zig when you're supposed to zag, that ball's already in the air. Those DBs are all over it. All they're doing in the NFL, all they're doing with young quarterbacks, listen to me, they're playing cover 2 man underneath. It's what they call Zorro coverage. So they're putting 2 safeties out and they disguise it. And basically it looks like zone coverage when the quarterback comes to the line of scrimmage, okay? And it takes a while for quarterbacks to start to read that. Now, Mahomes did it right away. Herbert did it almost right away. Some guys in the league, it just gives them fit. It gave Sam Darnold fits for 2 or 3 years, and then he got it. Okay, there's all such a sequence here. And dating back to your question, Johnny, about Isaac TeSlaa, played at Arkansas, great athlete, chiseled out of stone, good-looking kid, can do it all. Looks like he can. He just has not adapted to the offense yet. Okay, and it takes some time. And those other guys in that huddle they want those reps. I've been in that situation where those veteran guys will just jump in there. When you're running in team and it's 2 weeks before the season and you're going to be on the team, but those guys are jumping in and they're jumping in. They'll say first group. They'll say, okay, first group. And then after that, it's kind of guys filling in. Jump in, jump in, jump in. If you're one of the 6 receivers, you're jumping in, okay? It's not so many, okay, group 2, then group 3. That's not the way it works in the NFL. They'll say first group. Okay, we want to run first group here, and then after that, we're kind of rolling. He's just not doing that right now. I think most of his issue is up here, and I'm not saying he's not a smart kid. He is, and I'm sorry to carry on here. It's right up my alley. But it's going to take him a year, and next year is going to be a world of a difference for the kid when he gets a year under his belt with an NFL system in his brain. I hope that
I love
answered
that.
it.
No, I appreciate
I know I
that.
went a little crazy there.
No, that's why I threw it at you, Mark. If anybody's going to give perspective on that exact situation, it's going to be you. And I relate that back to then the way that they're using, let's say, Khalif Raymond, right? A veteran who's been in the system, been in the organization, and they have the ultimate trust that in any situation they put him in, he's gonna perform. So I think that's what I get from you, Mark, and I appreciate that insight. And I think a lot of Lions fans are asking that question right now: is wait a minute. Isaac TeSlaa made all these one-handed catches in the preseason. He should be getting the ball. Well, it's not as nuanced as that, and you just laid it out perfectly. So I appreciate
Thanks.
that.
Thanks.
And you got to remember, there's a lot of guys ahead of him, right? You got St. Brown's, the Laportas, the Jamos, Khalif Raymond. So it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
It is, and it's doable, and there's such a difference between year one and year two. Okay, and and I'm relating it. I'm sorry to mention McConkey so many times, but look at what's going on with Keon Coleman in Buffalo. He is a phenomenal athlete. As a matter of fact, he reached out to me. I'm friends with him on Facebook. He's a real social kid, and Keon, great kid. But it's taken him a year really to kind of get. And is he on McConkey's level yet? Nope, not yet. Now you look at Hunter Renfrow. He almost did it right away. Not to the level what McConkey's doing, but it's about coming in this league and really adapting to these offenses. And when you're running in the slot, I can't tell you how much different it is when you get to run wide receiver, quote wide receiver in the league. It's so much easier. You're out there by yourself. You don't get all cluttered up in that mess in the middle. When you're running slot, you got to know so much, and you have to have such a feel for defenses that it's almost mind-blowing. Sometimes in the game, you're just, and like I said, one little mistake in that area of mess there in the middle, especially at 10 to 15 yards, and holy shit, you got a problem because the defenses are moving so damn fast. Mm-hmm. So, it's a process. I think Isaac TeSlaa is going to be fine. There's no chance, or there is a chance that he'll become an 80 reception a year guy, but year one, especially with the group that you have here. And one thing that wide receivers will never tell you, because it's not appropriate. You don't want to get drafted by a team that was in the NFC Championship game last year, or really, when you're coming into the league, you want to play for a title, but you want to play for a team that was 5-11 the year before. Okay. Why? Because there's positions available. You can get involved a lot quicker into the offense or the defense when the team is just not that good. I mean, Isaac TeSlaa, the kid, is coming into an offense and a team that's probably one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the NFL. Now, he comes in the league and goes to the Arizona Cardinals, or he goes to, the New Orleans Saints, and guess what? He's catching 60 balls this year. But he's got it like Mark just alluded to earlier. There's a lot of competition out there on that offense. With Raymond and St. Brown and with Laporta, and even Brock Wright. Is a little bit of a go-to guy. So it's
what I find.
Needs a year underneath it, and he's going to be fine, guys. And I love the way he looks out there. Looks great, but just not productive.
Yeah.
No, you know what I find? This is more of a balanced offense. It takes time for Goff to trust you, and he's not trusting TeSlaa, right? It takes time for him to trust his receivers, right? So, and you see St. Brown dropping balls. You don't see. I've counted 6 drop balls that he usually catches all the time. So. The trust, and you see JMO, and you see meathead Dan Campbell. I'm a coach. I coach for 11 years, right? And I've coached. I've got 3 kids in the NFL, right? So he's like, okay, if that works, let's do it again. And they did the same fucking play 3 times in a row for fucking JMO, and they couldn't cover it, right? So that's the old Bill Parcells fucking mono. If you can't cover it, we're going to fucking keep doing it to us.
Stop it.
Yeah. And you saw it against when Jim Schwartz, right? He won that, had that in wide dime, right?
Yeah.
And they kept running that fucking same 3 fucking plays on Jim Schwartz. Oh my God. It just, I love Dan Campbell's way of thinking, right? If it's going to work this time, it's going to work the next time. Stop it. You can't stop it. I'm going to keep fucking running it until you fucking adapt. Right. I love everybody that's coming on. Thank you for your all your Yeah, I don't
Come on,
make any
guys.
money at this,
Appreciate it.
right? So Mark
Yeah.
Orem makes
No.
money on it.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a
Guys,
lot.
you making money? You making money on the YouTube? You making money on Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, it's. Listen, man, if that was all I was doing it for, then
No, I don't do
would
it
be
for the
doing
money.
this, to be honest with you. But I love the Detroit Lions. I'm sure, like you guys do, and that's why I do this. So yes, the YouTube throws me a penny every now and again, but believe me, that's not how I bread my butter.
No.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great to hear.
Well, Schmitty makes NFLPA money, so he's good. And Orem makes a little bit of change
I
here
make a
and
little
there,
bit,
but
man, but I got a job. I got a job
I
that
know.
I got to go to every
Yeah,
day, man. Every
it's
day
my
of the
job.
week. I work at Chrysler.
Yeah, I love it. I love being involved with the Players Association as an officer. I was elected in February, and I have to tell you guys, being involved into kind of the day-to-day things for retired players is very rewarding, and helping a lot of these guys out who have a lot of physical issues going on, and the league is doing a lot more than they used to help them out in the Players Association. And dealing with our Washington hub and what they do down there to try to help the former players has been pretty darn good, and it's getting better all the time. So it's something that I'm involved. I'm retired other than that, and doing shows like this, which I love to do. 90% of the shows that I do are I'm in the Buffalo area, or in the Detroit area, because that's where my heart is as far as the Lions are concerned. But being an NFL Players Association vice president, you're involved with all teams and players who played for all 32 teams. And I think I've touched players in pretty much all 32. I think 30 out of 32 that I've touched or communicated with in the last 6-7 months, which is pretty cool to be in that position and just get different perspectives from players who played in different cities. It's pretty neat.
Schmitty, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If you're going through the Detroit Tunnel, going back to Canada, would you pick me up?
I would pick you up. Yes, I would pick you up.
Okay. Well,
I would pick you up.
Orem left me sitting on the side of the road like a fucking prostitute. He wouldn't pick me up. I even said, "I'll jump in your fucking hood. I'll be a fucking."
I was like,
because I had a hotel on the other. No, here we go. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it.
Down, man.
You're never gonna live that down.
Priceless.
I was all for you coming in, bro. My buddy was all paranoid.
Oh yeah. Okay, I love you guys, and we're
Love
gonna
you
finish
too.
off. We're gonna finish off with this
Like,
one.
oh, man.
We're gonna finish off with this one. Ready?
Yeah.
Glover
Yeah.
Quinn.
Man, I
How's that?
appreciate you guys having me on, man. I mean, I think doing the Detroit Lions show, the fans out there are passionate, one of a kind. And so appreciate the work that you guys doing. Appreciate you guys having me on. I do Believe in Lions podcast on the Believe Network with my co-host Jack Kavanaugh, who's actually from Canada as well. And we talk